Backies, or reverse entries, if you want to call them that, are definitely one of the coolest things you can do in a drift car. In fact, there's an official list of coolest things you can do in a drift car, and it looks like this. Recently, something clicked for me, and I was suddenly able to do smooth, relatively consistent, decent-looking backies in my BMW. So I figured I should share that with you guys so we can get more people sending big, rad entries and making everything way cooler. Before we start, I just want to loosely define a backwards entry, or backie, as any entry where at least one of the rear tires leads the front tires into a turn. I'm going to be doing all this on NOLA Motorsports Park's kart track. This is my local track, and I also have it available to me on my VR simulator. I haven't been filming much lately, and I don't have much footage of these backies other than my helmet cam and some clips I stole from some folks on Instagram. So a lot of this video will come from my driving simulator. If you want to follow along at home, you will need, a real drift car or even a virtual drift car will work perfectly here. That drift car is going to need, that just means no over-centering, no tires rubbing frame rails. Just when you go to full lock, your front end should flow freely and shouldn't, slow the car down at all. You're also going to have to slide your front tires. I find this easier on cheaper, non-sticky fronts. A good rule is to run the same tire up front as you do in the back, but if you run something sticky like a Falcon 615, Federal RSRRs, or any of those Stalino, Vatino, Magnafino, those grippy things, that's fine. You can still do backies, but the tire is going to slow your car down a lot, and you're definitely going to chew them up a lot faster than normal by doing backies. Depending on your car's grip and power, you're going to have to slip your clutch, and that might burn yours out pretty quickly, especially if it's in bad shape. You don't need WiseFab, and there are too many variables to tell you how many degrees of lock your specific car is actually going to need, but generally stock angle isn't enough to recover, and the more angle you have, the better. Sorry if that doesn't really help, but when in doubt, just go send it anyways. You don't need an FD car, you don't need R comps out back. The biggest part of making it out of huge entry is gripping up the rear tires enough to get the car moving forward again. And as long as you have about as much grip in the rear as you do in the front, you should be all set. Just to illustrate, I'm sending it on some 225s and stock power. You just need to keep your car balanced and you'll be all set. Again, but specifically your track needs a tight corner with a high-ish speed entry. So it doesn't have to be a straight into a turn one high-speed corner linking into a tighter corner works really, really well too. If you watch FD, you know what this looks like. And some obvious stuff. Before learning backies, you should be consistent in driving your car and everything should work, including the handbrake, although you probably won't need it. You shouldn't do backies in a train or in tandem until everyone in that train or tandem can consistently do them and everyone has agreed to do them. This means you're definitely going to have to learn these in solo runs. In case you haven't picked up on it by now, the car I'm doing this with is my E46. It's a 330 Ci with completely stock power. The only things I've done to it are cage, a welded 343 diff, some ISC suspension coilovers, and an SLR angle kit. I run these cheap Century UHP tires in 225/4018 front and rear. They offer just the right amount of slip up front and just enough grip out back for these to work. In the virtual world, I can run an E46 that is extremely similar to mine. As I showed in a previous video, it's almost a spot-on recreation of my real car on this track, but the physics are a bit weird at bigger angles. Instead of doing the proper nerdy thing and editing this car to be just like my car, I'm going to use this. This is a mod made by Tando Buddies, and it's the car I most often drive in the game. It's a really common mod, and it's on a lot of servers, so I always seem to find myself behind the digital wheel of this thing. I think choosing a car that you're familiar and comfortable with is much more important than finding a car that has a specific feature or gimmick that you think might make it better for backies. That goes in the real and digital world. For consistency, I think it's best to stick to just one corner. I'm going to be using turn 1 of our kart track. It's pretty perfect for the task. It doesn't have any walls unless we put up these plastic ones, so I don't have to worry about wrecking my car. If your track does have walls, I'm really sorry. You're going to have to be extra careful, but you can still learn how to do backies. It's just going to take you a little bit longer, but it is better to be safe than to have to rebuild. Okay, now getting backwards. I find it easiest to use a really hard feint motion to initiate, like this. I also add in a clutch kick right here. That's just because I have a slow and heavy car with a long wheelbase, so I need the extra oompa loompas to get the car to over-rotate. You can also use a bit of foot brake right here to plant the front wheels and pivot around them, but this scrubs a bit of speed, and if you brake too hard, it's going to loop your car up pretty quick. If you sent it hard enough, your car is now backwards. Whoop! Alright, I'm just going to take a quick second and let you know this is kind of where things get subjective. A lot of people throw the car as backwards as possible, and then they try to dig the car out of the corner with power and grip. This turns it from like a corner into a V shape, which is totally fine. It's a valid and rad backy, and if you have the power and grip to do it, go for it. I'm not bashing on it. Sometimes drivers add in way too much angle and then have to back off so they can then make it through the corner, and I think this looks like a massive correction. I'm not really stoked on it, and I would say don't do this. But again, it's drifting. Do what you want. What I like the best is when the car carries momentum through the corner as if you were just following a normal drift line. That generally means getting the car to the angle that it would be at just before the apex. This usually means not going too crazy with the angle, but it does make it look super smooth and put together when you do it like this. You do what makes you happy though, because that's what drifting is all about. And the only real difference between any of these styles is just how much you over-rotate the car and when and how you get on throttle. At this point, your car is completely out of traction. Your front tires are just sliding, so you can't add more lock to get out of this, and they're not really doing anything for you. Your rear tires are pointing backwards, so the clutch should be in, allowing the car to kind of roll in this backy position. If you dump the clutch here and go full throttle, the momentum of the car is going to loop you really quickly. So there is a really important technique to digging out of the corner. Forgive the nerdy speak here, but you want the rear tires to slowly start adding forward momentum to change the car's trajectory from a linear one to an arc. To do this, you're going to need to slip the clutch or do a bunch of little clutch kicks to get some forward bite out of the tires while still rolling backwards. If you do this all at once, the car is going to loop out, like we said before, due to its rotational momentum. To do it the smooth looking way, you want to keep your eyes on the apex of the corner. When you get to the point where your front tires are pointing at the apex, you need to add a little bit of that forward bite to start changing direction. The quick little clutch kick works well for me, just because I don't have enough power to have like a clutch slip work for me. Keep those little clutch kickers coming until the car has changed its arc to something that falls within your steering angle. And that just means like you're going to start moving forward enough to where the front tires eventually fall into a line where they have traction. I hope you guys can forgive my crude animation skills, but just to recap, it looks like this. Front tires are sliding, car is heading this way, little clutch kick here makes the car start moving this way, more and more of those well-timed clutch kicks, and your car is now moving on this arc. The front tires are now in grip, and you can keep drifting normally. And that's pretty much it. The secret to the backy is all in the clutch work to get you out of a spin and back into the corner. Your best bet for bailing on any of these, and you're probably going to have to bail on a few when you're learning, is to mash your foot to the floor and just loop the car. This is going to get you away from the wall and slow you down. If you over-rotate though and like send the car all the way backwards, the foot brake will slow you down because the car is now moving backwards and basically in reverse. And that's really all you can do. Doing a backy takes a load of commitment because you're taking the car past the limits of traction on all the tires. When you're first learning these, I think it's really helpful to find out where your car can no longer recover. This means you should throw your car so hard that it over-rotates and no amount of clutch feathering is going to get it to keep momentum through the corner. But by doing this, you can figure out where the sweet spot is and get really consistent. But just in case you don't have tons of angle and can't really make it out of a backy, the stuff is still super helpful. I used all these same techniques before I knew how to do a backy when I was driving my 8.6, because I never had enough angle. So even to do like a big angle or like a normal-ish angle entry in that car, I had to over-rotate and get the front tires to slide. My FC is similarly challenged in the angle department. I always have to over-rotate that car, especially when chasing cars with big angle right in front of me. The only difference is that the rear tires aren't passing my fronts, so a decent amount of rear grip and power in that car can have me maintain bigger angle by just sliding the front tires and using the rear tires to steer. This is a super useful technique that ended up teaching me how to backy, but it can work the other way around. Say you learn a backy on the simulator, but your real car can't do it for whatever reason, you can still learn how to slip the front tires to do even bigger entries, even though they're not backwards. Once the FC's back together, I am going to try to send some backies in it. I think it might be a bit too like rear balanced, rear grip heavy to make it work, but I'm still going to send it. Hopefully this video has helped you guys send bigger and better entries. If it has, let me know down below what worked for you, what kind of made it click, because you'll find something is going to make it click and then suddenly you can do them. Or if you're having trouble learning backies, drop a comment and either myself or someone in the community will help you out and get everyone doing big, awesome entries, because that's how drifting should be. Alright, as always guys, thank you for watching and stay hydrated.